This is the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro, DJI's new flagship action camera that they officially launched today. I've spent a lot of time riding with this camera over the past week, and it is an impressive little camera with a few features that really set it apart from the competition. Today I'm going to give my opinions about this camera from the perspective of a mountain bike content creator and attempt to answer two main questions. Does this camera deserve the Pro in its name? And is this the camera for you? Let's get into it. As always, some disclosure. This video is brought to you by DJI. They sent me this Osmo Action 5 Pro Adventure Bundle and a small commission in exchange for making this video. On paper, the Action 5 Pro offers some tangible benefits to both myself as a creator and you as my audience, and it's my responsibility as a content creator to make sure that I'm always using the best tools for the job. I love testing and reviewing new products, and support from videos like these allows me to invest in products for future review videos. I won't be putting this camera through the Dale scale since this is a sponsored video, but thanks again to DJI for supporting my channel and making this video possible. Now, DJI has been making action cameras worth considering since September of 2022 with the launch of their Osmo Action 3, followed up with the Osmo Action 4 in August of 2023. I've spent an extensive amount of time with both of these cameras, and the majority of my videos that I've uploaded since May of 2023 were filmed using one of the two cameras. In many ways, I believe that these cameras were better than their flagship GoPro equivalents, and I have a few long format videos that cover these cameras in depth. DJI still sells both the Action 3 and the Action 4 on their web store, so if your budget is tight, I definitely recommend checking out those videos too, as they are both still fantastic cameras. Well, today there's a new camera in town, and that is the Osmo Action 5 Pro. This is DJI's first ever camera with the word Pro in the name, and it has a few impressive features that really set it apart from the competition. The standard camera bundle will set you back $349 US, which is approximately 474 Canadian or 314 euros. DJI sent me their Adventure bundle, however, which comes with their battery charging case, 2 additional batteries, and a few bonus accessories. This Adventure combo comes in at $449 US, which is approximately 610 Canadian or 404 euros. Now, I'm not going to bore you today by reading numbers off of a spec sheet. I'm sure you'll be able to find plenty of reviews online today that do exactly that. Instead, I'd rather focus on the tangible benefits that this camera has to offer, and show you exactly how it makes your life easier as a creator and creates a better viewing experience for your audience. Now, most modern action cameras are able to produce high quality footage under the right conditions, but the Action 5 Pro really stands out to me once you consider the features, performance, and overall value of the entire package. Now it's time to talk about setup. Since DJI designed this camera to use their new 4nm architecture, I spent 2 entire days tinkering with all of the settings in order to optimize them for mountain biking specifically. Somewhat unsurprisingly, I ended up with very similar settings to what I was using previously, but it was nice to have the validation. Let's discuss them in order of importance. First up, I choose the ultra-wide field of view, which is the widest option available in order to capture as much of the action, trail, bike, and forest as possible. DJI has kept the same 155-degree field of view as the previous cameras, and I find that it's a great sweet spot for mountain biking with minimal distracting distortion. I also use rock-steady stabilization, which is the lowest active stabilization option available. I found that this was more than sufficient for a helmet-mounted camera, even in very low light situations, since your neck acts like a natural gimbal already. Rocksteady Plus is not required and would result in less than ideal cropping of the footage. I use 30 frames per second since I find that 60 makes your riding look noticeably slower, and 24 looks like a PowerPoint presentation. This is purely personal preference. I set the image enhancements to 0 for both texture and noise reduction, as I found the video looked a bit over-sharpened for my liking with the default profile. It's easy to add sharpness in post depending on the lighting in the scene, but it's very hard to remove it. I use the 10-bit D-Log-M color profile as I find it easy to color grade and it provides a very impressive dynamic range. DJI claims that the Action 5 Pro can record an insane 13.5 stops of dynamic range, and although I can't test it in a lab, it's definitely better than previous generations. If you're looking for something easier, the 10-bit normal color profile works very well and you won't have to do anything to the footage afterward. I settled on standard wind noise reduction, but you aren't going to really notice a difference between none and standard without headphones on. The high wind noise reduction setting removed far too much trail noise, which seems more suited for car or motorcycle speeds rather than mountain biking. I use 4K resolution since that's the highest available at 30 frames per second, and in my opinion, this is more than enough and all you'll ever need in a single lens action camera these days, especially since most viewers still consume content at 1080p. For all other settings, including white balance and exposure compensation, I found that the automatic setting usually did a great job and I didn't have to adjust anything in post either. I've described my exact setup in detail in many previous videos, but it can be best summarized as a sticky mount on the chin bar of my full face helmet. This provides a great balance of stabilization, perceived trail roughness, and trail steepness. I'm still using the original DJI magnetic mount that came with my Action 3 as it's still compatible with the Action 5 Pro. Reverse compatibility is an impressive trend within DJI's lineup, and I'll talk more about this magnetic mount later in the video. I film all of my content in landscape orientation, but if you're someone who prefers portrait or needs to switch between the two, DJI includes a handy mounting frame in the box that allows for quick and convenient swapping on the magnetic mount. The final point about setup is that you have to use the DJI app to activate the camera. I believe that Apple users should be able to download it for free from the App Store, but Android users will have to install an APK directly from DJI's website since it isn't available on the Google Play Store. Your comfort level with installing and running apps that require special privileges may differ from mine, but it's definitely worth mentioning in this video. After activating and updating the camera, I uninstalled this app as it isn't part of my workflow anyways. And now it's time to talk about how the Osmo Action 5 Pro performed out on the trail. Here are the 10 features and benefits that stood out the most to me throughout my testing period. Number 1 would have to be battery life. The Action 5 Pro simply has the longest battery life of any camera I've ever used. My first 2 rides totaled approximately 2,300 meters of elevation, which is around 7,500 freedoms, which took me 5.5 hours to complete. I filmed every descent and even 13 minutes of the climb by accident, and I needed not just one battery, but less than half of one battery. I ride a lot and I could almost get away with using one battery every week on this camera, and that is truly insane. Now, DJI increased the battery capacity of the Action 5 Pro batteries to 1950 mAh from their 1770 mAh before, an energy increase of just over 10%. But they claim with their new 4nm chip, the functional battery life improvement is more like 50%. And the best part about all of this is that they managed to ensure all of the new batteries are fully interchangeable with all of the old batteries in both cameras and chargers. This was so interesting to me that I decided to run 18 separate battery life tests as I edited this video. I tested my 3, 4, and 5 Pro with 3 old batteries and 3 new batteries each, and I recorded the runtimes of each test in this handy table. Once we crunch the numbers, we can see that DJI was definitely telling the truth here, and although we fell short of the 4-hour marketing claim, because there's an asterisk that it is at 1080p, we recorded almost 3 hours of stabilized 4K footage using the Action 5 Pro. This is more time than I spend descending on 95% of my rides, and a 49% increase from the Action 4 with its stock batteries. DJI's 50% claim is easily within the margin of error here. It looks like there was a roughly 21% improvement from the new chip and 23% from the new battery. These are truly impressive numbers. Next up is a feature that is unique to the Action 5 Pro in the action camera space, and that is the addition of internal storage. The Action 5 Pro has 47 gigabytes of usable internal storage, and that is a big deal. My SD cards fill up mid-ride more often than I'd like to admit, and I've even forgot to bring one along entirely a handful of times. Having a buffer like this or a safety net of internal storage means that there's one less thing that could go wrong when you need to get that perfect clip. The internal storage is also likely faster than any SD cards, so you don't need to worry about deciphering the hieroglyphics of SD card ratings. Strangely though, there doesn't appear to be an option to copy files between the SD card and the internal storage within the camera. I hope that DJI chooses to add this feature in a future firmware release, as it would effectively allow for trail side backups of key video clips, a common feature of professional cameras over the past decade and something that would really reflect the Pro badge on the camera. It would be nice to be able to simultaneously record to both internal storage and an SD card too, although I'd more than happily settle for the ability to make backups on the trail. Moving on to video quality, the Action 5 Pro has a very impressive dynamic range. DJI claims that the Action 5 Pro can record an insane 13.5 stops of dynamic range, and although they don't cite a number for the Action 4, the Action 5 Pro performs noticeably better in harsh lighting situations. I'm far from being an intermediate colorist, but I was able to pull a surprising amount of data from shadows and highlights in some pretty tough scenes. Dynamic range is a big deal in all forest environments, where there is often a huge variation in brightness between the shade and the sun, or when going from an open area to a forest area in a single clip. 13.5 stops is well within pro territory, and even better than my very expensive full-frame Sony camera. Low-light image quality has also been improved from the Action 4. DJI claims that the Action 5 Pro has twice the signal-to-noise ratio in low-light settings, and although this is not something I am capable of empirically proving, it does appear to have noticeably better performance as the sun goes down. I tested this camera down to low enough light conditions that I was having trouble seeing, and the footage wasn't perfect, but it was better than any action camera I've used before. Being able to record stable, usable footage in dark environments will help you avoid missing the shot as much as possible. The Action 5 Pro also captures great colors in all riding situations. There are 4 color profiles available within the camera, and each of them serve a unique purpose. There's an 8-bit normal, which keeps the file size low, a 10-bit normal, which should help reduce banding without the need to color grade in post, 10-bit D-Log-M, which provides a ton of flexibility and a very impressive dynamic range, and the new HLG mode, which is exclusively for recording HDR footage. I found that DJI devices in general provide some of the easiest to grade footage around, and I've had great success with the 10-bit D-Log-M mode for all of my videos, where I rarely have to touch anything beyond simple exposure, contrast, and saturation dials in post. I've yet to invest in an HDR monitor, but it's nice to have that HLG option available for future device compatibility. The next major improvement would be the displays. The Action 5 Pro features two high-brightness OLED displays, which is a first in the action camera space, I believe. These screens look fantastic in person and make all other action cameras look like Game Boy colors in comparison. I've always avoided rewatching clips on older cameras for anything other than framing, but it's actually pretty good on this new camera. The whites are brighter, the blacks are truly black, and the bezels have been reduced to fit a larger screen in the exact same form factor. I had no issues using these touchscreens both with and without gloves, even with a small amount of moisture on the rear screen while riding. It's worth noting that this larger screen has taken up the space where the blinking red LEDs used to live, so if you want a blinking light to verify that you are recording, you're going to have to manually set this up in the new Always On Display Settings page. It'll take a bit of getting used to, but it is a worthy trade-off. Next up is the ability to record backup audio. DJI makes great standalone microphones, and I've been using one for the past year whenever I do my talking head style shots. Unsurprisingly, they're better than any built-in action camera mic too. The Action 5 Pro is able to connect to two Mic 2 transceivers and bake in their audio to the video file, eliminating the need to manually sync up audio in post. Although I didn't have time to test out their Mic 2 on trail, I noticed that there was a setting within the camera that recorded a backup audio track using the camera's built-in mic to a separate WAV file. This is a pretty big deal, as if the Mic 2 was set up incorrectly or the audio ends up being unusable for whatever reason, the footage will not go to waste as you will have the separate Action 5 Pro mic audio that can be used instead. Being able to record a separate backup track is a professional grade feature that is clearly worthy of the Pro badge. Speaking of audio quality, the Action 5 Pro delivers great audio straight out of the box. It may not be as high quality as what the Mic 2 can deliver, but in a world where convenience is king, the built-in mic does a fantastic job in my opinion. If you're watching through your phone or laptop speakers, you're probably not going to notice the difference between this and the previous generation of cameras, but the wind noise reduction algorithm has been slightly improved in this latest version. This trail is just so much fun. It's a great addition to the Eagle network, honestly. Something this mountain has kind of been missing. I think that high quality audio is more important than high quality video, and I've always preferred DJI over GoPro in this regard. I've never found the need to use their external mic or a foam wind cover to reduce wind noise with DJI's cameras, but if you want the best of the best, the Mic 2 connectivity makes that a relatively easy thing to accomplish. Now as always, I have to mention DJI's magnetic mount. DJI was the first to introduce this magnetic mount to the action camera segment, and it remains functionally unchanged in this latest iteration. A magnetic mount just makes life easier and makes filming much more consistent since you never have to change the angle when installing or removing the camera. I've never encountered a single issue with this mount over a year and a half of frequent use, and I'm happy that DJI has maintained reverse compatibility here. It would be nice if the camera was reversible on this magnetic mount, but I feel that this is a non-issue for most action sports with a fixed, clearly directional point of view. Rounding out this list is the charging case in the Adventure Bundle. There's nothing fundamentally different about this generation's charging case, but it remains one of my favorite parts of the DJI experience. This charging case allows you to charge 3 batteries at a time, it holds 2 SD cards, and it also acts as a power bank for other electronics in a pinch. It's a clean, elegant solution that I often find myself bringing along on the biggest adventures, and it's cheaper than GoPro's dual battery charger with loads more functionality. In my opinion, it is an integral part of the Action 5 Pro package. Overall, the Action 5 Pro sets a new benchmark in single-lens action cameras. The battery life is truly unrivaled, the addition of internal storage is a welcome safety net, and the new sensor records excellent footage down to incredibly low light conditions. Combine that with professional grade features like 13.5 stops of dynamic range, backup audio recording, and 2 OLED displays, and I think it's safe to say that this camera has surely earned its Pro badging. Honestly, my biggest complaint is that the power and record buttons are a little bit too stiff for my liking, and that says a lot to DJI's attention to detail here. If you're looking for an action camera for professional level content creation, the Action 5 Pro easily earns my recommendation and should be toward the top of your list. Let me know what you think of this camera and the footage I recorded in the comments below, and thanks again to DJI for sponsoring this video.